Like any true American, I love squats, so I'm excited to say today we're reviewing Prime Super Squat Bar. This American-made bar with angled handles and a self-adjusting backplate is a unique take on a squat bar. But is the bar as impressive as its price tag? Well, that's what we're here to find out. As someone who has squatted through a lot of different physical conditions, from the best shape of my life in a powerlifting meet to 8 months pregnant and then postpartum, I feel uniquely qualified to review a piece of equipment that's supposed to make the whole squatting experience easier, less painful, more fun. Take your pick. The thing about squatting is it's physically taxing in form and difficulty. By that, I mean to do a correct squat. Even with just the bar, you're holding your body in an uncomfortable and unnatural position. I mean, unless you normally walk around like a deformed crab, in that case, never mind and clip clip. Then, once you get the form down with no weight, you have to start adding weight, increasing the difficulty. I used to high bar squat and have since moved into low bar squatting because as the weight started to increase, I found it much more difficult to squat in that more upright position. Safety squat bars, or SSBs like this bad boy, are supposed to take some of the challenges of the squat form out of the equation and distribute weight more evenly across your shoulders and back, decreasing pressure on your upper spine. This allows you to focus on your leg workout without worrying about very specific upper body positioning, making it more volume and beginner friendly. And if you're injured or simply can't hold your body in a typical squat form, then you can use the SSB and not miss out on any of those sweet, sweet booty gains. Now that we've covered broadly why you may want an SSB, let's look at the Super Squat Bar specifically. Let's start at the beginning. I opened and assembled this bar myself. I've gotten laptops and TVs in worse packaging than this. Every single piece was securely wrapped in foam with an extra foam barrier between the part and the box. I'm not my husband, so I didn't do this, but I feel like you could throw this box off of a roof and everything inside of it would still be pristine. Assembly was pretty straightforward. The hardest part was trying to figure out how to get the bar to lay flat on the ground so that the screw holes were accessible. But in hindsight, I probably should have just rested it on my safety so I could access all the parts of the bar. So that's a winning tip for you. We have gotten a couple things from Prime, including their shorty bench, which my husband has reviewed, and I am beyond impressed by Prime's build quality and attention to detail. From the bar's welds to the vinyl and foam, it is immaculate. And for people known for their nitpicking, I have no criticisms about the build quality or packaging of this bar. Now let's talk about how it stacks up to others. We've reviewed a lot of SSBs, including Rep Safety Squat Bar, Titan's American-made Safety Squat Bar, and Bells of Steel's SS3. If you're interested in any of those, I'll link them below, and if you buy any of the bars we mentioned today, please use our affiliate links because that's how we keep this channel rolling. Let's start with the most striking difference between Prime's bars and those other SSBs, and that is the back pad. If you look at Titan's, Reps, and Bell's SSBs, you'll notice that the back pad is like a U, where you're in the middle surrounded by foam covered in vinyl. These are all using the same general idea of how the bar rests on your back. If you look at Prime's back pad, well, back plate, then we're in a whole different ball game. There's no thick foam, it's just this thin, rigid metal square with a small piece of padding to cover it. So how's that supposed to work? You might as well just squat with a regular bar, right? Well, no. This back plate was designed to be self-adjusting. What that means is, unlike those other SSBs, this plate actually shifts and pivots on this point until it rests on your back shoulder area as flat as possible. Then you have these pads on the side to offer a little extra cushion to your shoulders. I won't lie, the Prime bar was very strange at first because I'm not used to my gym equipment changing or moving with me. Normally the equipment is rigid and you're contouring your body to work with it, not the other way around. After a couple weeks of using this bar, I've grown to really like it and find it much more comfortable than the traditional SSB back pad design. A lot of this comfort comes from the fact that the self-pivoting backplate gives you freedom of movement. You can lean forward or back until the bar is comfortable to you, with no fear of dropping the bar because of how it hooks onto your shoulders. I personally felt much more secure doing exercises like hat feel squats and lunges because I had no fear of this bar tipping. And I'm not saying the other SSBs we reviewed will tip, but I know for certain this one will not. If you can't tell already, I really like Prime's SSB, but that's not to say it's without fault, bringing us to my first criticism. Now, I don't know the medical term for it, but I have, like many other women, bird shoulders, meaning they're narrow and wings sprout from them. Prime's bar, unlike the others, has this pinch point between the back plate and the shoulder pads, so if I'm not paying attention while positioning myself, I find my shoulders fitting into this area and getting pinched. Now, it's just uncomfortable. It's not going to cause me to drop the weight or anything, but for a bar this expensive at just over $650 shipped, with code Gluck saving you 5% on everything at Prime Fitness, I'm allowed to be critical about small things. I also think this might be a relatively small fix by making the pad more squishy. Right now it is the densest foam of any of the bars we have, with little to no give. If there was a little give or squish, I don't think this would be an issue anymore. Now let's move on to the handles. Prime has these very long angled handles. This angle allows you to still hold onto the bar without them getting in the way of your legs. The entire handle is textured, meaning you can hold onto them wherever your heart desires, whether that's high or low. They work. I think they could be knurled instead of this rubbery grip that I suspect will get slippery if your hands are sweating a lot. But again, the bar sits on your back pretty securely, so it's not a big deal. Some other SSBs, like Bell's SS4, gives you the ability to screw in different handles depending on your preference. For example, you can have these short knurled handles or these chain handles. Speaking of the SS4, let me know if you want me to review it or something similar down below. I think in reality you wouldn't be changing the handles that frequently, but the customization is a nice touch that Prime doesn't offer. As to how it feels during actual exercises, it's amazing. I did a whole slew of exercises with the straight bar, reps SSB, and the super squat bar. I did this because I wanted an extra leg day. I'm kidding. I did this so I'd have a better understanding of how each exercise felt with different bars, especially since the safety squat bars all have different camber, which affects how the bar feels during movements. Prime's camber drop and angle aren't as dramatic as others, and that makes your squat feel a little more upright like a barbell squat and less like it's throwing you forward like with a typical SSB. Let's start with squats. As I've already said, I low bar squat with a straight bar, so I'm used to the weight being lower on my back and leaning forward. My biggest issue with low bar squat is I was sadly not blessed with massive traps like my husband. So in order to keep the bar on my back, I have to wedge my arms close to my body and it hurts my wrist. If I'm doing a lot of weight or volume, my hands will actually go numb. This is a big problem that a lot of people have. Not the lack of traps, but difficulty or pain in their upper body while squatting, and is one of the things that led to the development of the SSB. When using reps bars, I didn't have that issue, but the weight felt like it was on top of my neck, and I felt myself straining my neck back against the pad to try to keep my chest up, which is really not ideal. Now for Prime's bar, because the weight is sitting more on your upper back than neck, and I have these handles, I don't have either of those issues, making this the most comfortable bar to squat with in my opinion. I say that with the caveat that first getting under this bar is intimidating, especially because the tilt the bar sits on the J-cups changes as you add more weight. At first, the bar is basically upside down, and as you add more weight, it starts to sit more upright like you would expect it to. Let's just say the first couple of times I used this bar, I was very conscientious about racking and unracking. I also tried out good mornings, lunges, and Hatfield squats. To be honest, when it comes to comfort, Prime won. I felt very secure and comfortable with this bar on my back, even when I'm not holding the bar like with Hatfields. I think a lot of that comfort comes from the fact that you don't need your hands to keep the bar in position, which unfortunately also comes with a drawback. I don't know how you would bail out of this bar. I worry that because you'd be pushing the handles up and back, the bar would hit the back of your legs on the way down. Now I'm not going to try it because I don't love you all that much, and honestly it's not a big deal because we're all smart enough to set our safeties. Let's talk about the most important thing about this bar, and that's how easy it is to actually use. This is the most important thing because no matter how good a bar is, if you don't use it, then it's useless. This bar fits well in both of our 47-inch and 49-inch wide racks. And speaking of racks, no one's gonna leave a squat bar in their rack for a whole week, meaning you're gonna have to move this bar back and forth from storage. Like all SSBs, this thing is annoying to store, no ifs, ands, or buts about it. It doesn't sit anywhere nicely and takes up a lot of space. Rep's bar is a colossal 68 pounds, meaning that watching me, someone who has been seriously lifting for years, get this into the rack and then onto the J-cups is comical. Not only do you have to set the J-cups higher than I normally would with a straight bar, it's also 68 pounds. The prime bar, on the other hand, is only 51 pounds, and because the weight horns sit lower than the back plate, you actually set the J-cups very low relative to a normal squat, and so getting the bar into position is much, much easier. The Bell's bar is our lightest bar at just over 47 pounds, but because you have to lift it so high to rack it, I think it's a wash as to which one is easier to move. To me, the ease of setup, comfort, and secureness while exercising makes Prime my favorite bar. But we all have different goals, preferences, and budgets. So while I think Prime Super Squat Bar is the best safety squat bar I've ever used, it's also the most expensive. And you'll need to decide if its unique attributes are worth it to you. Thank you to our Patreons for putting up with me so much, and let me know what you want me to review next. Bye!